Welcome to the We Build Import Race here in Genova for the grand finale of the 14th edition of the Ocean Race. Today is our final day of racing, the last competition set against the historic city of Genova. For our 4 IMOCA teams, the crowds are back to cheer our sailors on as we get ready to take to the water once more, this time for the final time. The last chance to go out on top for any of our boats wanting to show the crowds just how much they can get out of their boats. The weather at the moment here in Genova looking pretty good here for a little bit of racing. It's light, but that's certainly a challenge that our sailors will be looking for. And joining me for racing today is previous Ocean Race skipper and IMOCA round the world sailor Sam Davies. Sam, light but enough.
Hopefully, yes, Niall. There's a little sea breeze that has managed to form here in Genova, and let's hope it's going to stay in for the duration of the race. Just enough to get the boats sailing, but probably not flying today, sadly.
Not flying, but certainly fighting. And we do have some important positions out there. And we were wondering just how much of a competition, how much of a match race we're going to see between Team Olsen PRB and Bioterm.
Yeah, there's definitely a match race for the third place of the import series. Currently Bioterm are 1 point ahead of Team Holcim PRB, so the one who finishes ahead of the other is going to get the third place overall.
It's going to be interesting to see how each of our teams face this We Build Import Race in our grand finale in Genova. But before we get to the action, let's take a little look at the teams. And first up, 11th Hour Racing Team. They have been awarded the overall trophy, and today they are all but confirmed winners of the Import Series. Even crossing the line in last place will be enough, thanks to their ability to never finish outside the top 3. But going out in style and winning will certainly be their aim. Next up, Team Holcim PRB. They have not had the best run in the Import Series, but they are only 1 point outside the top 3. Skipper Benjamin Schwartz could finish on the podium if his team finishes ahead of Bioterm, and his crew will be working hard to make that happen. Boris Herman's Team Militia are in a strange position. They can't really climb out of second overall, but they can't fall lower either. So for this crew, the racing today sits as its own contest. They won the last offshore leg, and it'd be great to win the We Build Import Race here so that they were undefeated in Genova. Bioterm's position, currently 3rd overall, much more shaky. They are in a who beats who with Team Holcim PRB. Now, can we expect these two teams to lock into each other before the start? How aggressive will Paul need to be to hold on to 3rd? We're about to find out. Let's take a look at the scores and where we are for the overall positions in this edition of the Ocean Race. An 11th Hour Racing team have already been crowd winners. The results of today's import race are not going to be able to do anything to disrupt that. The American boat, our first American team to win the Ocean Race. There's still a little bit of a question as to what will happen in the import series. They are looking very comfortable in that top spot. There is an outside chance if they don't manage to finish the racing today. Team Militia get maximum points. We could still see a place change, but the big battle is between Bioterm in 3rd place and Team Olsen PRB in 4th. IMOCAs are getting themselves ready for the racing, and it's looking a little bit light on the racetrack at the moment. There has been a little bit of a question as to what would happen with the breeze, and Sam, I think we've got a little bit of an update from race control.
Yeah, at the moment apparently there's quite a big wind shift that's just happened out there, and they're going to have to reposition the race course. So that'll take the race committee a little bit of time to relay all the marks in the right direction, so there's potentially a little bit of a delay on the start.
And this is something that we have seen quite a lot of in terms of Genova. The breeze here, you've got to take it when you can. It is not a given that we're going to have an easy breeze. And if anything, I think for the teams, for the sailors, they've been studying the breeze that we've had this morning. They've been watching the VO65s who were racing an hour ago, maybe trying to work out what was happening in the wind, learn the patterns, and now it's all changed.
Yeah, exactly. They've probably got chase boats out there trying to do what they can. You can see the postponement flag. It's the red and white striped one that's on the committee boat. There seems to be, let's hope they don't suffer from seasickness on the race committee, because that's rocking around a bit with no wind. I just remember I did quite a lot of match racing in Genoa, and I used to get really frustrated because they use silk to make their race flags with, so it looks like there's wind. But they're the lightest, thinnest flags that exist ever, because, yeah, Genoa is kind of renowned to have not much breeze here.
And the local sailors managed to get the most out of it. I mean, for the arrivals, we had a lot of those old historic boats with those big kind of sail plans, sort of sweeping all the way from bow to stern. They've certainly got the way. For the IMOCAs, you know, your boats, they're built to go around the world. They're built to do a little bit of everything. And in the light winds, we do see them struggling a little bit. So let's look at the course that we're going to have here, Sam, and talk us through our final We Build import race here at our grand finale in Genova.
Yeah, so we're racing the typical, the reaching course that we've seen quite often with the IMOCAs. So we'll be starting, it's a reaching start up to Mark 1, a jibe round Mark 1 and 2, reaching back, tacking round Marks 3 and 4. The ambition was to do 3 laps, but given the wind speed, I'm not sure they're going to manage to do that. But they'll probably try and set a pretty short course to be sure that the crews will get around it. But yeah, tricky day today.
You see the mountains in the background of the tracker, and they're in the background of that shot of the race control boat. Those mountains not helping the sea breeze establish here. So while we've got a little bit of a moment, it's probably worth just bringing in Mark Towle, our third commentator here in the commentary box with us in Genova. Mark, congratulations once again on winning this edition of the Ocean Race. Perhaps you can go for the double and get the import series as well. It's certainly looking that way. But let's just focus on the breeze here. It's a big wind shift. You're a sailor. You've been around the world more than once. A big shift like this, is this the sea breeze trying to come in?
The result. And as far as the racing goes today, yeah, we are in a very tricky part of the world here in Genoa, notoriously known for light air. And I think while the breeze is shifting, it is good that the race committee is taking the time to make sure that they get the course set properly.
That's a very good point, because we could, of course, start, but a little bit of announcement here on the VHF.
1409. I repeat, the AP to come down at 1409.
AP down 1409, so the postponement flag will come down at 1409, so we will begin the 5-minute countdown at 1410, so the start will get underway at 14:15 local time, so basically in about 7 minutes time, so not long to go. And Sam, it's a bit similar to what we saw with the VO65s. It's hot, it's sticky here in Genova, but it's a nice day on the water. Everyone's out watching the racing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Great to see so many spectator boats who've made the effort to come out on the water today in Genoa. Well, for sure, it's weekend, so probably lots of families out on the water, and hopefully these boats will be inspiring some future sailors to continue sailing and maybe one day do the race themselves.
Because they cut an interesting shape, don't they, on the horizon when you see an IMOCA coming, or indeed any big offshore racing boat. That black sail, square top, doesn't look like your standard boat that you'd go cruising on. If you want to go and see it, this is the time to do it as the flag comes down here. So postponement flag down, but Sam, as I was saying, coming up and getting close to the IMOCAs, you're normally standing on one, you're normally racing one, but do they look as impressive to you when you're off the boat?
Yeah, for sure they do look as impressive, and I think they look impressive. The high-tech sails, the foils, the hull shape, everything's, you know, it's real. The latest technology in sailing boats, they're amazing to see, and it's not just to see. You can, maybe not today, but normally you can hear them as well as the crews are easing the sheets. You can hear the ropes creaking on the winches, and I think that's one of the impressive things as well when you're close to an IMOCA out in the water, is to actually and hear the foils vibrating. Some of the IMOCAs, they're quite high-pitched sounds coming out when they're going fast, and it's really impressive.
Well, we are just about to get the 5-minute countdown underway.
3, 2, 1, now.
5 minutes, so the countdown has now started. We were delayed due to a wind shift, but also the wind is light. At the moment, the race committee boat is saying there's only 2 or 3 knots on the racetrack. So, Mark, let me ask you a loaded question. As somebody who's got a lot of skin in the game here, are you happy about racing in 2 or 3 knots, or would you just prefer if they just said, oh, let's just park it here and we'll just give the trophy to the Americans?
I think we're always looking for an opportunity to go racing, and it was very much our expectation that we'd have conditions very similar to this here in Genoa. I think everyone, all the teams have, been pushing for so long and so many months all the way around the world to get to this point, and I think today's race is really a nice symbolic ending to the journey that we've all been living.
And everybody is out here to witness this end as well. We've got the spectators as well. You can see our 4 IMOCAs with the mainsails up. You also got a couple of the VO70s as well, blast from the past out in the water.
Yeah, we've had the Legends Regatta going on in the background, and we've had a lot of very famous names in the sport and within this race that have been here for the last few days. It's been great to see them, and I think it's just a nice way to celebrate the history of this event by having some of the boats in the past here today.
And those boats out there to watch and to take in the racing. Our Team Wholesome PRB are taken to the water on their last import race, and crew member Annemiek Bess on board for the racing today and gave us her thoughts.
So Bessie, tell me what you're seeing out here on the race course.
Yeah, we're now checking the course, so I just pinged, it's called pinging, the line. You see we're just crossing the start line and finish line. Very important, as you can see it's not so windy today, so we yeah, it's going to be really the start again, like in all import racing. Start is going to be crucial, and everyone knows. So that's if you're away. Oh, we have postponement. There's a postponement flag going up. Yeah, so basically the start is crucial for this kind of racing because it's a reaching start, meaning that we are actually straight from one point to the first mark. And if you win that section, you're clear. You probably have clear air, and then you can, yeah, get away from all the other boats, basically. So that's our goal, to do a really good start. But it's going to be very tricky. There's a lot of influence. You see, there's some waves coming through. The wind is up and down, so yeah, maybe it looks a bit less spectacular because we probably will not fly foil, but for us this is yeah, pretty full-on focus to keep the boat going, yeah, especially in this kind of condition. So yeah, that's what it is.
Annemiek Bess from Team Wholesome PRB talking a few moments ago. Don't be confused by the sounds you heard in the background and her referring to that postponement. That was in the past. We are now in the future where that postponement flag is down. But Sam, it doesn't look much better, does it?
No, it doesn't look great. Obviously, the sail plan today is the J0, which is the light wind sail, to try and minimize the drag, so the foils will be up, but nobody will have their foils out. And yeah, and you can see there's not much wind in those sails. It looks like Milizio's got a little bit of pressure on the left-hand side.
Bioterm starting to creep forward. They look like they are moving quite well compared to the others, and you can see the start line on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, the white committee boat flying the flags and the white square buoy around the middle of your picture on the right-hand side. And now with a final minute to go, it's all going to be about this run-in. And Mark, 11th Hour Racing Team are a long way back. A mistake or strategy?
I'm not sure. We'll have to see, but we do look a little far from the line at the moment. There still is 50 seconds to go. The time on distance is particularly hard in light air to get right, and also with this ocean swell out here, it's going to be quite a tricky day to make sure that we keep the boat speed up at all times.
Well, in the VO65 racing an hour ago, the start 2 hours ago, we saw a similar situation where the boats thought there was going to be a little bit more breeze, or at least acting cautious. 11th Hour Racing Team do seem to be moving faster than the others, but they've got an awfully long distance to run if they want to close that in 30 seconds. Now 20. Team Lizio very close to the line, but by my eye, Sam, just go for it now.
Yeah, it looks like they've got they've done the best time on distance. They can even play it safe if they like, because the Bioderm and Wholesome PRB are far enough behind them. But yeah.
the We Build import race here at our grand finale in Genova gets underway, and it is far from a spectacular start with all 4 of our IMOCAs a long way back from the line, and the light wind splitting the fleet as well.
Yeah, so it looks like there were 2 choices with Biotherm and Militia going for the pin, and Team Holcim PRB choosing the committee boat or the windward side. Maybe they were afraid of getting rolled, but that doesn't look great to me. It looks like they've got stuck in a little bit of a wind hole, and there was a bit more breeze on the left-hand side of the racecourse.
Well, Team Militia now crossed the line in first place. Team Holcim PRB is the closest to windward, so they should have the best breeze, but they're going to be at a soft angle. Biotherm in between Team Militia and 11th Hour Racing Team. Mark, I love to make predictions. That's what I'm all about here. And coming into this race, we said that 11th Hour Racing Team had this pretty much sewn up. And I'm getting flashbacks of what we saw a while ago with the VO65s. The only way that your team could lose this, essentially, is if they get timed out and Team Militia win. You know, it's unlikely, but this is kind of the start of that.
Yeah, you are good at calling it, Niall. It is really interesting to see what's happening right here. I think there may be another wind shift going on. Team Militia with the best speed, but also with the most ease in that front sail, and that appears that they've done the best job in getting the boat going. It looks like there's a bit more pressure to the leeward side of the course. In that last shot, Holcim PRB was flopping around quite a bit in that sea state, and hopefully they're able to get their boat going soon.
I think you're absolutely right about that wind shift. It started off a lot more from the south. It's then kind of came around to the right-hand side. Now it's kind of coming back to the left. It's put these boats here much more eased against the breeze, and I'm guessing here, Sam, for Team Holcim PRB, if you're light winds and in a IMOCA trying to go on a more downwind angle, it's slow.
It's slow, and you just can't. You have to have a certain angle to the breeze to be able to create enough apparent wind to keep the boats moving forward. So that's what Team Holcim PRB, they've had to push the helm and put the bow up and accelerate.
A little bit of a role change here on Team Militia. Normally we see Will down below with Rosie working the grinder and all of the sheets and various control systems, and so perhaps on this final day they've given him an opportunity to keep his head up and enjoy the spectacle that is this last race.
I think Boris has really been somebody that has, more than some others, allowed the crew members on his boat a chance to sort of step up. Sometimes he was forced to. He hurt his leg. Will Harris had to jump in as skipper. But you'd like to think little moments like this. Will, go on, take it around the course one more time.
Yeah, they've done a really nice job bringing their whole team along. Will's been an incredible part of this team for a long time, and you know, I think they've done a great job here, and they're out in the lead. So hopefully they can stay there.
Well, the question is, how much breeze are Team Militia and the rest of our boats going to be finding here for the moment? Team Holcim PRB struggling on that windward side, but we are wondering what the breeze is like in the commentary box. But down on the water, we do have Kate Jordan from Mercury Trifoot Racing Team there on the racetrack. Let's go down to Kate now for the latest.
Yeah, hi guys. There's a bit of swell out here, which will definitely be compromising the boat speed that they can get with this light wind. From our angle on the chase boat, I can tell you that there's definitely some holes in the breeze as they head along this breaching leg. Earlier today on the 65s, we found that this first starboard reach had a bit more breeze, and then when we went closer into land on the port reach, it got a bit lighter. But I'm hoping that these guys can keep enough wind in their sails and yeah, keep the boats moving around the marks.
We are moving, but not by much. At the moment, we are about halfway along that first top reach, and an order hasn't really established, but that boat to windward, Team Holcim PRB, if they don't want to be in last place rounding Mark 1, they're going to have to find an awful lot of pace up there, Sam, because they've got a long way to come down towards the others.
Yeah, Niall, because Mark 1 is the bear-away mark, where between Mark 1 and 2, the fleet will have to sail dead downwind and jibe to reach Mark 2. So yeah, Holcim, they're going to have to struggle to even to get to Mark 1, and then they're going to have to bear away more to jibe towards Mark 2. So yeah, they're in the least favourable position right now.
Some decent speeds. I mean, I wasn't expecting to see the IMOCAs when we were talking about postponement. We were talking about less than 2 knots of wind. Wasn't expecting to see the boat speeds up at around 5.
Yeah, it's great that the boats are able to keep moving, particularly in this light air. It's Just to talk about Malizia's hull shape for a second, a lot of people have talked about how strong this team was and this boat was in the Southern Ocean, the big downwind conditions, but they've also proven to be very slippery in these light air conditions, you know, winning this last leg and here into Genoa.
And that is, I mean, I'm right in saying that that's a bit of a shock here. I mean, Sam, just a moment on that. You know, we'll come back to talk about Team Malizia because they are a boat that's performing well and at the moment in the lead. That whole shape as somebody that owns an IMOCA, races in IMOCA. I mean, someone like yourself, are you looking at that and thinking, I wonder whether I should make my boat a little bit more Malizian?
It's difficult to change the hull shapes after they've been built, but I think, yeah, people talk about Malizia being a very solid, heavy boat built for the stronger downwind conditions, and she does have a lot of rocker on the hull, which means that once you get up to hull speed in the lighter or the medium winds, it's harder for them to get real, you know, high speeds. But when we're below hull speed and it's just all about getting the least drag possible, that rocker actually helps them by taking the transom a little bit out of the water, and they actually have a little bit less hull drag than Biotherm and 11th Hour, I think.
At the moment, Team Malizia out in the lead. Biotherm coming up, just crossing to windward of their line. Biotherm in second, 11th Hour Racing Team behind. But look at this, for Team Holcim PRB, they seem to have lost all power there, and they're being forced to come up tight to the breeze, away from the rum line.
Yeah, and they're actually, they were just about to furl their sail, so I wonder if something's going on. Let's listen into the onboard here.
Hey, Bessie, what's going on here?
It's super, super light. We just started. You see the yellow one? Yeah, you see the yellow one? Yeah, okay.
Oh, Georgia, the onboard reporter of Team Holcim PRB, was just trying to get a few words from IMOCA Best. And even though it is light and the boat is moving very slowly, crews on the bow, crews around the boat, they don't really have a lot of time to talk often. They are still engaged with the work, but that's really slowed them up.
Yeah, so what we can see here is that there's been a big right-hand shift, and so none of the IMOCAs are making it down to the Mark 1. And they're all going to have to jibe to lay the Mark 1.
And also going through the spectator fleet as well. Those yellow marks that we were seeing IMOCA Best warning the rest of the crew about, that denotes the spectator area, and they're allowed, the IMOCAs are allowed to go into the spectator area. It's not an obstruction for the boats, but the spectators aren't allowed to go out of it. And right now we're seeing that wind shift dragging the boats through and into the spectator fleet. It's light winds. People have got crew members on the bow, they're looking out, they should be able to watch for things, but at the moment, for the spectators on the fleet, they're getting treated to quite a close-up view as the marshals just push those spectator boats a little bit further out, and the wind here for our We Build import race at our grand finale in Genova is getting very light indeed. The reach turning into a downwind leg.
And Niall, what is interesting about this wind shift, as the boats are going downwind now, is that if this wind direction holds and if the course doesn't change, then we will have a long upwind beat between marks 2 and 3, and that's something we haven't seen a whole lot of in this type of racing. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Do not threaten me with a good time. That would be fantastic, seeing them struggle with that with that upwind. That would be quite something. You see Boris Herman there as that wind shift. It's going to be faces like that, stresses like that, concentration needed on trying to work out what the next move needs to be as this breeze changes yet again. It happened before the start. They needed to move the race course. Now it almost has shifted back to where it was. Team Holcim PRB are, I would say, the early losers in this at the moment, and the crew members on board Team Holcim PRB needing to find a little bit of an option to try and get back in and try and find a way, and that's exactly what IMOCA Best is trying to do on board.
This is not over. We're not in the best position now, but
One of the reasons why this is tense for Team Holcim PRB is because Bioterm, the boat that they are racing against for third place in the overall series, is doing quite well. Right now, Team Milizia have jibed off, but Bioterm they're moving. Paul Mayer manages to get that boat moving. I mean, Sam, you sailed on this boat. Light winds, I mean, okay, we're only talking about a race that's been rolling now for 10 minutes, but it seems to do quite well in these conditions. Yeah,
Bioterm is a boat that's definitely optimised a little bit towards the medium and the light winds, and sometimes to the frustration in the stronger stuff in the Southern Ocean. But yeah, I think they'll have decided that today's their day, and you know, they're going to do everything they can to take advantage of their boat speed in these conditions.
Well, they've got a jibe to come here for Bioterm, a turn to make. Now that they're in the breeze, they're desperate to use it as much as possible. And they are coming up to that jibe. Team Milizia has jibed, and you can see the two white marks there. The one on the right-hand side, just on the lower half of your screen, that's the next mark. Team Milizia have jibed, and that means they're going to need to do two here. Bioterm setting up hopefully for one. When these two boats come together, it will be the Germans. Boris Herrmann's Team Milizia should have right of way, if indeed that is at the mark. He'll be coming in on the inside boat. But right now, I'd say that the breeze here, the speed, is with Paul Mayer.
Yeah, Biotherm's done a nice job at maximizing that little bit of pressure that they had, and have now jibed. I think this is the first time we've seen a split on leg one in this entire series. But yeah, they've been able to get the boat up to speed after the jibe. That's usually quite an important moment after you've jibed in light airs, to get the boat back up to speed, and they've done a nice job at that. Let's see how this cross goes at Mark 1.
We can see Marie Rioux, who's running around. She's an Olympic, an amazing French Olympic sailor, a really good tactician, really aggressive, never gives up. So, and I think she'll be really, really useful for Paul today on this race course.
And this is a grudge match. I mean, in the closing stages of the last offshore leg, it was Team Milizia that managed to slip round Bioterm, Team Holcim PRB, and take the win, arguably when it should have been Team Holcim PRB or Bioterm, considering that those two boats were vying for the lead through all the 2,000 miles of the leg. So for Bioterm now to get back in front of Team Milizia will kind of right some of those wrongs, I think.
Milizia's got a really important decision to make here. They can either cross Biotherm but then set up to leeward, or they can jibe on Biotherm's bow but potentially not lay the mark and have to do two more jibes. So it'll be very interesting to see how this goes. Both boats seem to be doing about similar speeds, and it's going to be a critical moment here.
The right of way with Team Milizia. Coming downwind on starboard, that yellow mark, not a mark of the course, it's the white mark just out of shot on the right-hand side. There you can see it, and Team Milizia jibing now, and they're jibing right on the edge of the mark zone, but they are in front, so they will have that mark room. I think their approach to this mark is going to be slow, but for Bioterm now, I mean, tactically, Mark, this is going to be a really interesting point. Do you want to burn that speed and get on the outside of the Germans, or do you actually want to slow up and get on their stern?
Yeah, so Milizia, of course, because they got to the zone clear ahead, they have the rights at this mark. But as you pointed out, they are going to be a lot slower. They're also pointed dead downwind. So Biotherm have the option, if they can keep their spacing, to potentially go around the outside to leeward. Or, as you say, Niall, they could slow up and just try to be right on the tail of Milizia. It's a tough call, but it looks like they're going for the leeward option.
Right now, like they probably didn't have the choice.
well, I think Team Milizia, they do seem to have parked up. I mean, I was wondering why Boris Herrmann jibed where he did, but he has actually acted quite nicely as a blocker for Bioterm. It is going to be difficult to try and get on the inside. That's the view, that's the snapshot of what it's like for the crew on board Bioterm. You're going to have to judge that moment if you want to swing your bow through. And Sam, you've helmed a lot of IMOCAs. At the back of the boat, it's an awfully long way to the bow, and that bowsprit as well. You're going to have to judge that pretty carefully if you want to swing up.
Yeah, generally we'll probably see someone coming, maybe running up to help Paul on that choice. But looks like he's judged it, and he's just kept the boat slower to be able to come around behind Milizia and head up on their transit.
So at a repeat in terms of what we saw in the final 24 hours of the last offshore leg, Boris Herrmann just sorting out the Traveller, a half a glance behind for Bioterm, but they're a lot closer than they were coming into Mark 1. We are now on the short section between 1 and 2. It should be a downwind section, but I don't think it is. And Mark, I think your your prediction about an upwind race on the next leg is coming true here. We're going to see some tacks and a lot of tactics.
Yeah, it really opens up the tactics here. This race course has generally been about speed and, you know, establishing the pecking order off the line and then minimizing the risk around the maneuvers to maintain your position. This will be the first time ever we may have a tacking duel coming into these with these IMOCA 60s.
11th Hour Racing Team in third, the view from ahead, Bioterm in second place, but it is Team Milizia in the lead here in Genova for the We Build import race. Team Milizia round, they've now gone upwind, so we are seeing that the German boat is nowhere near laying the top of the course. We need a wind shift to the left-hand side in order for these two boats to come. But look at that, that's a nice tight rounding there for Bioterm. That's getting on the inside. They're going to have to make that position work for them for a long journey here. Will Harris doesn't look too concerned.
No, and I think that's the right thing. He shouldn't look behind too much because he's got to concentrate on his telltales and the comms with his trimmers. And yeah, it's tricky. We can see the sail trimming these J0s. You've got to try and potentially you have to get an inboard sheet on to trim them for the upwind. And we can see Biotherm here going for the tack straight away to clear their air.
I like this from Bioterm. I like this a lot. I like this aggression. I like that we're not going to follow you for this gifted upwind leg that we shouldn't really had. We're going to go straight into attack. 11th Hour Racing Team, they're around the bottom, but they seem to have parked there, Mark, on the right-hand side of your picture. They've come round. They are certainly in a little bit of wash from the rest of the fleet as Team Holcim PRB, and we are having to pull a long way back to find the Swiss team. And this was because they started at the windward side of the line and they were forced to come down that slow downwind angle while the rest of the boats were having a much smoother approach into Mark 1. For Team Holcim PRB, they're a long way back now.
Yeah, potentially a little bit unlucky there. Had the breeze gone left instead of right, then Team Holcim PRB would have been in a really strong position. And with how variable these conditions are, it's hard to say exactly what would have happened. But yeah, they do have some distance to make up, and the race at the front is going to be quite interesting with the split that's happened here with Biotherm tacking. Milizia have to decide whether they cover or whether they try to chase where they think the best breeze is, and then 11th Hour Racing will need to respond to that accordingly as well.
And you're going to have to keep all your options open because the shift that we've seen was the reverse of a shift that we saw a few minutes earlier. So it's all a little bit interesting here as we are seeing Team Holcim PRB managing to get up to speed, now closing off the first, what should be the first reach, but is actually turned into the first downwind. Meanwhile, Team Milizia have now tacked over and trying to sit on top of Bioterm. And Sam, they don't quite have the pace.
No, it looks like Milizia sailed into a bit less pressure. I think that's what Kate was saying earlier of what had happened with the VO65s having less breeze near the shore. Biotherm tacking earlier. Looks like they're hooking into a little bit more pressure, which we can see Holcim PRB coming in with that breeze, and looks like they're doing a bit of a the French call it the spoon, where you come around the bow of the boat behind you and get a bit more height.
Well, there's strange scenes here on the water as our fleet is split on the waters of Genova as the breeze is playing havoc with this import race. We should be on a reach. We should be seeing our four IMOCAs cruising towards Mark 3, but the wind has shifted aggressively, and now we are seeing our boats having to zigzag on this course, trying to make their way up. And for Team Milizia, the boat in the lead, they are facing that agonizing decision of locking down Bioterm, going out to sea, or 11th Hour Racing Team going inshore. The tactics on Bioterm with Paul Mayer, very different to what Simon Fisher, Charlie Enright and the rest of the team on the American boat is choosing to do. Mark, I mean, are you happy with your team's decision here? We've heard from the sailors before that inshore does get a little fluky.
Yeah, we have, but that was also before the big wind shift, and so I think all bets are off. I think if you're in the position of 11th Hour Racing Team, you'll happily take a split. And Biotherm was the first attack. It looks like that's been a gainer to them. This next cross will be quite important with Milizia, and then with 11th Hour Racing Team, if we can get to the other side and create a split, then all that's better.
Bioterm now tacking over, and a potentially very important cross with Team Militia coming over. They are out of shot on the right-hand side. Bioterm tacking, the sails filling but barely, and they are very slow there. A lot of rudder needed to turn that IMOCA through, and the best speed right now is with 11th Hour Racing Team out on that far side. Perhaps that's breeze, perhaps that's just simply conserving the momentum. Bioterm, they have done 2 tacks. Team Militia, they've also been putting in multiple maneuvers to try and lock down Bioterm, and we have got a bit of a cross here. The Germans, Team Militia, coming up here. They're coming up on starboard tack, so they have right of way of Bioterm. That's just one battle, because 11th Hour Racing Team are miles away on the shore, but now we can see the two coming together, and it looks to me like Bioterm are ducking here. They're putting in that big turn. They know they're going down, and then as I say that, the bow starting coming up here. I think Bioterm now realizing they are definitely going to have to go behind. It is agony when you are not the right of way and you have to duck behind another boat that is going slowly. You're almost wanting them to go fast and get across your bows quickly. Paul Mayer had the speed there, but a couple of big pulls on the rudder. He needed to line up with the stern. And now Bioterm still behind Team Militia, but they are constantly putting Boris Herrmann under pressure.
Yeah, just catching up a little bit, putting them under pressure, and really it's the tacks that are critical in this upwind. It's so slow to tack these IMOCAs with the J0s, so you want to minimize the number of tacks you make and really choose the right side, and the one who does the least tacks is probably going to come out pretty good as well.
You're absolutely right. That seems to be 11th Hour Racing Team, and also Team Holcim PRB, who is catching up. We've got boats at completely opposite ends of this racetrack, and down there we have got Kate Jordan. Kate, give us some idea here of which side of this racecourse is going to pay, who's getting some sort of advantage here, how does it look?
Oh, it's really tough to tell from down here as well. I think it's quite interesting that you can see the difference in the breeze strength and the angle across the racecourse, just looking at the way the boats are heading. If the breeze swings back to the south and goes left a little bit more, I think 11th Hour are probably closest to the rum line to do a nice fast reach into that next mark.
Well, at the moment they've certainly got the speed. I mean, Mark, you've been keeping your eyes glued to the tracker here. Nearly 6 knots for 11th Hour Racing Team. Team Militia struggling to get it over too.
Yeah, it seems like we've got good speed on board at the moment here. I think part of that, as Sam was saying, is just minimizing maneuvers, and it could also be a bit more breeze and shore. It's hard to tell from this angle. Another thing that's really important to monitor with the tactics is the spectator fleet and all of the bits of wake that are coming off of all these boats that are out. It's always fantastic to have people watching the racing, but in light air days like this, a bit of chop in the wrong direction can really kill your speed.
I think they've been doing quite well, because I just saw 11th Hour Racing Team come through the yellow Marshall boys, and the boats have been moving with them, opening up their race course. Everyone wants to get close to the action, but nobody wants to be the one boat who got in the way, caused a problem. So at the moment, everyone being very well behaved out there. It's Team Militia who are struggling with speed. I think those extra turns, Sam, that you were talking about, it's a big boat, it's a heavy boat, it builds up a little bit of momentum, but turn too much and you're really in trouble. A wind shift might help them out here though.
Yeah, as Kate was saying, if the wind comes back to the left, then Militia might be the ones to lay the next mark without another tack. But yeah, right now I'm looking at Holcim, who've managed to do a good catch up. It looks like they've done the no tack option as well, and there seems like they've got that same breeze that 11th Hour had, and they're pushing up. Catching up that delay that they had on the first mark.
It's amazing how much a big wind shift has suddenly reshuffled the pack here. Right now, the lead is very uncertain in this import race. For the leaders, that wind shift really causing a lot of headaches, and you can see how wildly spread out our fleet is. A good indication of who's doing well is where the spectators are, and right now they are shepherding 11th Hour Racing Team, who are buried inside the spectator fleet. Everyone on the shore getting very close to the action as those boats are pushing in really tight. It's 11th Hour Racing Team, the American boat, the winners of this edition of the Ocean Race, but not yet the winners of the Inshore Series. And you can see just how tight to the shore they are going. Questions about what the breeze was inshore, but it seems to be going well. And behind, it looks like Team Holcim PRB, who really struggled in the first leg, 2 legs of this inshore race, they seem to be following the Americans inshore as Biotherm and Team Militia trading blows, and the Germans losing out and slipping back right now into 4th place.
As you say that, Niall, I'm watching the Germans accelerate, and they're up at boat speed up at 7 knots. It looks like they've got a bit of left as well, and they might even be laying that Mark III. Biotherm as well, they seem to have picked up a bit of breeze as well. So actually, yeah, they're all building up towards the 7 knot boat speed. So a bit of relief for everybody to be finally at normal boat speeds.
And you were calling it. You were calling that left-hand shift and whether that was going to help Team Militia. Certainly does seem to get them going. I mean, Mark, more wind speed though. If you were a tactician right now, you'd be thinking, okay, more wind, but does that mean a change again in the direction? And in which case, where the hell is it going next?
Exactly. On a day like today, whenever there's an increase or decrease in velocity, oftentimes that's associated with a shift in the direction as well. And so if there is a pattern to that, the teams will want to make sure they're paying close attention to it so that as the breeze does increase or decrease through the rest of the race, they can be anticipating what the directional change is going to be as well.
Is Team Militia going to be able to position themselves well here and lock down 11th Hour Racing Team? We have not seen attack on this upwind leg. It shouldn't have been an upwind leg, but nonetheless it is, and we have not yet seen the American boat tack. But for Team Militia, they have done 2 tacks, and those tacks have been incredibly costly in terms of speed. It has put them on the inside, on that left-hand side, and if the breeze continues to fill in and turn to the left, we might see the German boat being rotated into a powerful position. But they are going to need everything they can get, because on the far side of the race course, 11th Hour Racing Team have not slowed down since rounding that bottom mark. They have got 1 tack to go, and they're going to have to choose this lay line very carefully. Picking a lay line to the next mark to try and seal in the lead that you have been gifted in a shifting breeze is very challenging indeed. A little bit of swell on the race course for our boats, but the speeds are now building as all the boats moving at over 5 knots as a little bit of wind coming in here for the We Build Import race in our grand finale in Genova. Big open race course right now, an upwind leg when we shouldn't have been expecting one, but nonetheless we have. Sam, left, right, middle, your predictions here. We're seeing the flyby coming through, welcoming our boats into Genova and welcoming the final day of racing at our grand finale location. For our teams though, out in the water, this is going to be incredibly tricky, these final moments to pick up here. Maybe half a chance just to enjoy the aerial display going on across the racetrack for our boats. But even just behind, you can see how patchy the water is and how difficult it's going to be for our teams.
It's always so frustrating when you're racing and all this is going on and you miss it all. But hopefully the teams will get to see the video on replay. And we can see 11th Hour attacking now. As you were saying, have they got that ley line right? They've chosen to do a furling tack, which is, I would say, the low-risk maneuver when you tack instead of trying to let the sail blow through. A nice, neat furling tack, a lot of well-practiced maneuvers paying off here, and we'll see if that tack is in the right place.
They seem to still be moving. They're still making bow wake. It's a really good way in the light winds just to see whether that boat has still got some movement, and they're doing well. Amory Ross, the onboard reporter, one of our onboard reporter teams from everywhere, putting in so much work to bring us all the action.
Amory will be enjoying this moment. He's a pilot in his own right. He just got his pilot's license a few months before the start of the ocean race, and I know that after this race finishes, he's going to be building his own plane. So while I'm sure he's doing his job to the best of his ability, he's keeping one eye on those fighter jets up there in the sky.
and maybe potentially not quite at the moment where he's going to be able to jump in his plane and fly that close to each other. But on the race course, at the moment, they are looking set to come in tight together into a formation, into Mark III. We have got confirmation from the race control team that they are shortening the course. So it does look set to be 1 lap. 11th Hour Racing Team have tacked. The side of the course that has paid for them so well is now behind them. And on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see Team Militia making their way up. Bioterm also on that side as well as Team Holcim PRB on the left-hand side, trying to find the breeze that the American boats have used. The fleet is starting to close back together now as we get into that approach in Mark 3. And just like we saw here, Sam, in the previous marks, I would say that in terms of the rules, in terms of the advantage, Team Militia again lining up for the inside rounding.
Yeah, they're lining up for the inside rounding. It looks like we've got a little bit of a left-hand shift, and it looks like the finish is actually at this mark. Is that correct, Niall?
Yeah, I think it is. I think with the breeze, the race control have not only shortened the course to 1 lap, but shortened it even further. This is the finish, and this is going to come down to those final meters. It was 11th Hour Racing Team off on the city side of the race course. They had the breeze, but right now in terms of distance, Team Militia is much closer to that finish line. Bioterm is on the other side of the racetrack. They've lost out to 11th Hour Racing Team. They've come round in 3rd place. 11th Hour Racing Team are on starboard. They have right of way, but I don't think they're close enough here to Team Militia.
Yeah, I agree with you, Niall. And actually, it's not just about the distance, but also Militia, with their angle, at least, appear to be laying the finish line. And 11th Hour Racing is going to have to do one more tack. We're going for it right now here, and this will be a very critical tack to see if we can get back up to speed and cross the line ahead of Militia.
I think that was 11th Hour Racing Team luffing up through. You could just see the race control rib on the right-hand side. That was denoting the other end of the start line. So I think 11th Hour Racing Team, with that tack, with that little maneuver, that extra turn that was needed just to pierce the line, has made the difference. That has just gained them that 1 or 2 boat lengths, that little bit of a push. And it's Team Militia that come through the line in 2nd place. Bioterm behind to the right, having to tack through. What a way to finish.
And the most important for me, of being a little bit biased, Bioterm are in front of Holcim PRB, and so they're securing their 3rd place overall in this import series. So in the result that counts is that one for me.
I don't want to jinx it yet, Sam, because Bioterm, I don't believe, have come through that line. That is the other end of the start line is out there just behind the 11th Hour Racing Team. 11th Hour Racing Team have finished. They are now the winners of not only the overall trophy in the 14th edition of the Ocean Race, but also the Import Series as well, winning the We Build Import Race here at our grand finale. Team Militia across the line in 2nd place. We are waiting to see Bioterm come through the line, and Team Holcim PRB are a long way back. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I always get in trouble. You guys always wrap my knuckles when I do that.
I'm confident.
I know you're very keen, and I'm confident as well, but I would never forgive myself if I, curse the position here of your team. There we can see Bioterm, and there on the left-hand side, that white rib with the blue flag, that is the other end of the finish line that has moved to meet the boats here rounding Mark 3. The S flag, the white and the blue flag, saying that we will shorten the race at this mark. So for Bioterm, it is one more tack to go. Surely there will be no problems here for Paul Mayer and the crew, having raced so many miles together, knowing what needs to be done. And in this light winds, it is simply going to be a furl of that masthead code 0. And now we begin that turn. If they have tacked in the right position, if they can get their sail unfurled on the other side, maybe even perhaps just their momentum pulls themselves over the line. But going into the race today, for Bioterm, they needed to make sure they finished ahead of Team Holcim PRB, and they are doing just that. The finish line is now right in front of them, and for Paul Mayer and his crew putting in maximum effort into that unfurl of the masthead code 0. 1 boat length to go, and it is 3rd place in the We Build Import Race here in Genova, our grand finale location. Team Holcim PRB a long way back. So for the Import Series, a great way to finish this edition of the Ocean Race. The crews of Team Militia celebrating not only the racing today, not only a 2nd place, but also the end of that journey. Likewise, 11th Hour Racing Team, their final race here, their final commitment to speed, performance and excellence in this edition of the Ocean Race is now wrapped up. They've got to just take that boat ashore, and then I'm sure an enormous party is waiting for them. But the boats are waiting, and they are waiting for Team Holcim PRB. They are waiting for the competitor that has set the pace so high in this edition of the Ocean Race in those early stages, that was bringing so much innovation in terms of the way that you sail the boat, how you push for extra speed, advantages in the way they were using the foils, advantages that also we saw repeated across the rest of the field as everyone copied the incredible performance from this boat. And here in Genova, with the breeze, with the wind shifts, it never went the way of the Swiss team, but everybody on the water waiting to see Team Holcim PRB finish here and wrapping up an amazing performance from a very strong team.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys have done a nice job, and I think, as I said before, this really bookends this edition of the Ocean Race. I know that every single sailor on that's been involved in this event, doesn't matter which team you're on, will feel a strong sense of accomplishment this afternoon and this evening. To be able to say that you've sailed around the world, to have done it in the world's best and most challenging offshore racing competition, it's something to be proud of.
And for all of those boats that are taking trophies, all of those boats that have been sailing really nicely, it really means a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of emotion that we see on the faces of all of our sailors here throughout the race when they go through, but also at moments like this when they are finishing off the import race, their ocean race journey. 32,000 miles the racetrack, but that doesn't really do justice to actually the miles that they sailed around the course and the adventures that you guys have had along the way. And Sam, it's always pretty special, these final few boat lengths, win, lose or draw, just bringing this to a close.
Yeah, it's fantastic. A great sense of accomplishment for all the teams here, completing the lap of the planet. I'm sure lots of people will be dreaming about the next one.
Well, as Team Holcim PRB comes across the finish line, here is confirmation of the results here for the We Build Import Race at our grand finale in Genova. 11th Hour Racing Team going out with an absolute bang, sailing around everybody else on the city side of the racecourse and finding the breeze. Team Holcim PRB tacking in the distance and crossing the finish line, but for the overall scores, it is confirmation that 11th Hour Racing Team will be lifting that trophy at the awards night tonight. And Team Militia in second place with Boris Herrmann having another strong performance, and Biotherm taking that last spot on the podium. And there are the points. 11th Hour Racing Team, 29 points against Boris Herrmann and Team Militia finishing on 25. Biotherm in third place on 19, and Team Holcim PRB on 17, while Guyot Environment Team Europe in 10th. Well, the race was certainly unpredictable, and everything could have happened out in that racetrack as we got the delay, and then finally with those wind shifts the race got underway. It was a strong start for Team Militia, the only boat that really got the time on distance correct, and then that big wind shift as the boats made their way down to Mark 1, putting our IMOCAs into the spectator fleet, and everyone happened to move back as what should have been an easy reach down to the first mark turned into a lured racetrack. At the bottom of the course, Biotherm, Team Militia coming together and locking together for the battle for the lead. And then on that upwind leg, the unexpected windward journey, which saw our IMOCA zigzagging all the way to the top of the race course. Multiple maneuvers, but none for 11th Hour Race Team. Charlie Enright, Simon Fisher and the rest of the crew deciding to preserve momentum and finding the breeze near the shore of Genova. And then a short finish line waiting for the boats, and the American team taking the win here in Genova for the We Build Import Race. Well, an incredible event, a nice way to finish even without the breeze, but plenty of drama. My thanks to Sam, to Mark and for Kate down on the water, and that brings the import racing and the ocean race to a close.
Ramon Carlin of Sayula and his international crew celebrate winning a race that made history.
He has built and sailed his own yacht to victory in the world's toughest ocean race.
Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales makes it official.
Winner of the Volvo Ocean Race Trophy, Germany's own Elbrook Challenge.
It's been the most outstanding single experience of my life.
crew of Ericsson 4 have finally got their hands on the trophy as they celebrate winning sailing's ultimate prize.
Yet to hear. That means I've spent most of those 8 years away from home, away from my kids, away from my wife, and you know, all of a sudden all of that's worthwhile. And
the glory of winning was the goal for all the teams.
Winners of the Ocean Race!